Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamu alaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. So today we are going to do the last chapter of Al-Jam'u, which means plural in English, and we are just going to revise a little. So in Balagha, the question only arises in Balagha when there is an alternate way of expressing something. So when there is only one way, you don't ask why this was used because that's the only way it is expressed. But when there are more than one ways to express something, then you will ask a question that why this particular way was used and not the other alternate way. So you have to remember that in mind. So for example, if a word only has, let's say, sound plural, and there is no broken plural in Arabic language for it, then Balagha question will not arise that why sound plural was used, because that's the only way it can be expressed. But if there is a word which has a sound plural, it can also have a broken plural. In broken plurals, plural, it can have maybe multiple patterns. Then you will ask why, let's say, sound plural was used in this context and why broken plural was not used in this context, or vice versa. So the question will only arise when you have more than one way of writing or expressing something. Also remember, uh, these two isms, ism ala and ism zarf, do not have any other pattern for plural. This is the way it is written. We don't have any other way to write its plural. Then, yeah, so two things that you have to keep in mind. First of all, qilla wa kathra. Qilla means scarcity or less, and kasra means more. And iradatul hadathi, irada means intention, intention of action. And iradatul ismiyati, when the intention is of noun, you can say. So let's look at killa. So inanimate objects, especially in objects which are, you can say, which can't move, or even figuratively they can't move, and we have already studied that. What does it mean? So mostly in objects which are, you can say, non-living or cannot move. Killa means sound plural mostly, and it refers to less quantity, like somewhere between 1 till 10, but something less in quantity. And kathra means more in quantity. So it's, and also broken plural. Kathra usually comes in broken plural and more in quantity. Something more in quantity. And here it's written 11. Now iradatul hadathi, when ism, it looks like grammatically it's an ism, but it carries a very strong element of action. And for that, sound plural is used. And then we have iradatul ismiyati. So you mean the noun, and and broken plural is, by the way, used for this. It behaves an ism. It will behave an ism. There are other elements in it, but when hadisi is used, you will translate it as a verb. If you remember, we have khazin. Khazin was one example. Khazin. So it was, I remember, used as a khabar. So, and it was translated as a verb, as store it. People, humul, you can say hum khazinuna. They store, something like that. They are, you can say they are storers, but it's actually referring to the verb that they do. And similarly, if you use khazanatun, that then it means that it is, you can say, the gatekeeper or something like that. If I remember, khazin was yeah, to store someone, yeah, to store something, but it was used basically, translated as a fail. There was an example before. So now let's look at these broken plural patterns. There are more patterns, by the way, but these are a few main patterns which occur a lot. And, we are just going to study and focus on these patterns. We have already learned, by the way, kathra, broken plurals mean kathra, more in, and there are kind of not exceptions, but there's more to it, but mostly, by and large, it means more in quantity. And we are talking about ism over here. It's translated mostly as a ism. Now, grammatically, it's a, grammatically and, translation wise also. So for alun, if you remember, abundance in action, not people. So huffazun was one of the example. Hufazun are more than two people who are memorizing Quran, yes. But in fact, more people, let's say 20 people. But the abundance is, what it signifies, this pattern is that these people memorize a lot. So that's why this pattern is used, because it is abundance in action and not in people. So most when this pattern is used, you know that people who are carrying out this action, they carry it out a lot. Then we have fa'alatun, and it is referred to the occupation or label or classification of particular group. Now, what does that mean? If you remember khazanatun in Surah Mulk, kullama ulqiya fiha fawjun sa'alahum khazanatuha. So the gatekeeper, its gatekeeper asked them. So it was translated as of course as an ism, and also the occupation, the label of that term was used. Then we have fu'alun, in which individuals carry out. So this particular pattern signifies that people who are carrying out the fail inside this, they are apparent fail, they are apparent actions, and they are of short period. So if you remember, ruk'un was one example. People who do ruku, I think sujadun and ruk'un were two examples. So these are apparent actions. You can see someone doing a ruku or sajda, and these are short period action. Then we have a pattern which is derived from feminine fa'il, fawa'ilu. So it doesn't have tamar buta, but you would know that this pattern, when this comes, it refers to a singular of a feminine fa'il. Let's now study rest of the four patterns. So for alanun, now it expresses relative killa. Now, that does not necessarily mean less than 10 or something like that, but usually there is a comparison between two groups, and this group will be smaller in number. So that is what it means. So over here, we have an example where Umyanan, and you will see how Umyanan, we have another alternate for its broken plural. Ama is the word, and Umyanun is one pattern, and then Ummun is another pattern. We'll see how it goes. So over here, if you see, and those who, when reminded of the verses of their Lord, so people who are good, do not fall upon them deaf and blind. So it's referring to people who are good, who, when they are reminded of their verses, they do not fall deaf, they do not cover their ears, they do not become blind. And these people are, do you think they are more in number or less? I would say they are very less. And that is why this pattern is used. So this is what it says. Ama is the word which means blind, which basically mean blind people. And it's basically talking about Ibadah Rahman, people who worship Allah, and they are small in number, related to, it shouldn't be related to, it should be related to. So related to the people who are misguided. Also, so if you see in other places in Quran, these are the three examples, and these are the translations. So over here, umyun, summum, bukmun, umyun, fahum la yarjun. It's a very famous ayah from Surah Baqarah. Another place, umyun is used. Another place, al-oma, which is become made proper. Now, if you see over here, deaf, dumb, blind, so these are people, over here, the context is not good people. It's people who become deaf, dumb, and blind when they are, when maybe ayah or Alamiya's zikr is, mentioned. Again, we have those who disbelief is like that of one who shouts at what hears nothing but calls and cries. So again, disbelievers, which are not less in number, which I would say are more in number, and you cannot guide the blind away from their error. So again, figuratively, the people who basically are blind, those who believe, you will only make here. So those who do not believe, again, more in number. But over here, this is Umyan is referring to people who are reminded of verses of their Lord, and that's why this pattern Umyun is not used. The pattern is used Umyanun pattern is used. Umyun is another pattern that we will study, but Umyanun is used because these people are very relatively less in number, as opposed to in these ayahs when it's referring to people who are more in number. So that's one thing. So Notice also this is the only time ama is pluralized this way in Quran. Otherwise, as you can see, and there are more examples by the way. Oh, everywhere in Quran, when you see blind, it will plural by the way, blind, in plural, they would be using it in this. Then we have these three patterns, fa'ala, fu'ala, and fa'ala. Now, it is used for deficiency, calamity, or illness. Now, we've got three ayahs where all these three patterns are used. So over here, if you see mauta, which is fa'ala, fa'ala is the pattern mauta, and dead person, and death is a calamity. That's why al-mauta is used. Then over here, sukara, which means drunk or intoxication. And over here, it's used because drunkenness causes deficiency. So you remember deficiency in intellect, dignity, and behavior. And that's why sukara is used sukara is the singular, and sukrana, suk, and this is on ra. This little alif dagger is on ra. So sukarana, uh, sukarana would be fu'ala. Wait a second. This is Suka. Wait a second. This is. Sorry, there was a mistake in this. It's not Sukranun, it's Sukara, which is Fu'ala, and which again denotes deficiency. Drunkenness basically causes this deficiency in intellect and dignity and behavior. Then we have another example of Al Yatama, which is Fa'ala, Fa'ala, Yatama. And as you can see, yatama is plural of yatimun, and orphan and losing a parent is again a calamity, and that's why this is what this pattern is signifying, that it's a calamity. So these are little elements that these plural patterns carry. Now we have another pattern which is fu'ala'u and fi'alun. Now these are derived from ism sifa, by the way. So different ism, and this one will, if you see this pattern, that means it is ism sifa that is being made plural. So over here, if you see kubara'a, then we have khifafan and sikalan. So kubara'a is for ala'a, and khifafan and sikalan is fi'alan and sikalan. So fi'alan, basically fi'alun, fi'alan. Now let's look at this. So kabir, which means big, big ones, and basically people who are big, and big in status, not physically. So usually when this pattern is used, they're not talking about big in physically, they're talking about maybe big in designation, big in status. Similarly, over here, if you see khifaf and thiqal is plural of sifa khafif and thaqil, and which means people who are wearing garments, they are heavy, and people who are wearing not wearing armor, sorry, not garments, armor. They are not wearing armor, they are light. So physical lightness and heaviness is used. So physical. Over here, it's not physical. It's not in its literal meaning. And over here, it's physical. It is very physical. It's not its metaphorical meaning. It's in its literal way. So that's the point that I want to make over here. So fu'ala'u would mean metaphorical context. And fi'alun would mean literal. That means physically. Physically, what is it's meant is literal context. So that's why this is the pattern they are following. One more thing, for ala'u becomes af'ila'u when it's naqis or mudaf. So when the root letters are either mudaf, it has hamza, or root letters are has the last root letter vowel, then it will become af'ila'u as plural. So shadid, if you can see, shadid will become ashidda'u. Basically, if you see ashdi da'u, but it ashdida, the and the is merged together, ashidda'u, and qawiyun is so if you see mudaf, dal and dal, so two letters, two same letters in the end, so that's mudaf example, And kawiyun is an example of naqis, which has ya in the end, a vowel in the end. So aqwiya'u. So that this pattern, it becomes this pattern if these two, mudaf and naqis, are the root letters. Let's come to the last one, which is ala wazinil masdar. So sometimes masdar is also used to, signify a plural and group of people carrying out actions in the truest sense, like they are doing it in the most honest sense. And we have that example over here, where as-sujud. Now, as-sujud is basically a masdar. It's a masdar pattern, and their prostration is full of humility. And purify my house for those who do tawaf and for those who stand in prayer and for those who do ruku and true prostration. So a sujud is the masdar of, I think, sajada yasjudu sujudan, and I think this pattern is used for something which is done in the full of humility and the truest way. Sometimes this pattern is widely used, the masdar pattern, and people in this group are carrying out action, as I said, in the truest sense, not metaphorically, not figuratively. I think figurative is not the right word. Let me just yeah. So not figuratively, in the truest sense. Yes, I think that's correct. So then we have an example over here. So comma is one of the verbs. Now, when you're talking about plural in literal meaning, to stand, the masdar will come. Say, all right, so that would be quyumun. Sorry, qayamun. Qayam is the masdar pattern. And when you are talking about plural in figurative sense, that means to stand in prayer, then you will use for that qa'imun, for the people who do that. So so this brings us to the end of Al-Jam'u. These are a few things that I have kind of condensed it in a form of chart. We've already done these four patterns. For Lanun, basically expresses relative killa. It's basically comparison between two groups, and this group is smaller in number. Then this fa'ala, fu'ala, and fa'ala is used for deficiency or calamity or illness. Then we have another pattern which is fu'ala'u and fi'alun, which is fu'ala'u is used for metaphorical context and fi'alun is used for literal context. And we remember af'ila'u, fu'ala becomes af'ila'u when there is naqis or mudaf in root letters. Then last one is group of people carrying out action in the truest sense is when we sometimes use masdar. Basically masdar pattern of that verb. So this brings us to the end of our chapter, Al-Jamu. If there are any questions related to the topic, please feel free to ask on the group and one of us will be able to help you. Assalamu alaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.